Welcome to episode 94 of the XrmToolcast. In this episode, Scott and I speak with fellow MVP Clement Olivier about his original tools for the XrmToolBox, the Delta plugins. And then, while we're talking about that, we found out that he has a new tool that he released just at the beginning of the year here that is allowing you to rename your views. So if you ever need to know more about how your plugins are deltering between different environments, or if you need to be able to rename a whole bunch of views, then this is definitely the show for you. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the XrmToolcast. With me, your host, Daryl, always raising the bar, and Scotty, his ribs don't hurt to row. Scotty, how's it going?
Very good, thank you. Yes. Yes. Well, you might. What's the reference with my ribs? You know, just
well, it's more of my ribs. I went skiing and I bruised my ribs for the first time in my life, and that's not a fun thing to do. And they still hurt. And like sometimes, like making the bed, like ow, that hurts. And I tried to use it as an excuse. My wife says no, I still need to help make the bed. So
did you have lessons? Gain. Did they just like push you off the top of the mountain?
I had lessons the previous year, and it was in Michigan, so it's not really a mountain. It's more of a big hill, But it was still, it was. I was just trying to work better on churning and flopped over. I think what it is, I think I landed on my pole, the end of the pole, because I think my arm was above my head, and I think that's what I did is landed on that because I couldn't figure out. How did I hurt myself? It was like spread all over my body. It was just landing in the snow. Like so anyway. Yeah. So that's been my life.
And when you go skiing and your kids start to get really good, that's, you just have to catch up with them. This is the problem with going, it's because then they end up going skiing down and going all down all these black runs and stuff. And then it's like, oh, you got to wait for your old dad. And it's quite good though. You start to get good quite quickly when they get to that level.
I'll let them do that, and I'll worry about catching up with them later when I'm not scared about actually breaking bones with it, just like bruising a rib. Anyway.
Well, I'm glad you made it back in all in one piece,
yes,
so that we can
made it back. And it's been lots of changes when it comes to things. Another word for change is a delta, like a change, right? And speaking of that, we have the creator. See, I did the intro this time just to see how it felt, to show you how it feels with these corny intros. But
how do you feel you did there? How do you feel?
Oh, that was a solid D minus, maybe a D.
I thought it was seamless transition,
seamless integration. Well, I had to stop and call it out. It's not nearly as great, but our guest is a repeat guest in Clément Olivier, the Power Apps Dynamics 365 CRM MVP addict, according to his Twitter profile. But he has a tool we haven't talked about yet. Actually, two. We're going to lump them together because they both have the word Delta in them, and they both have the word plugin in them. And so, they're close enough. We'll just lump them all together. So today, our guest is Clement. Clement, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes, we have to make sure that you're keeping up in your English because the next MVP summit, when we can actually get together, you need to keep on practicing that. So we have to keep you back sometimes.
I will try to be there, yeah.
But you have this is our XrmToolBox tools. It's been a while since we've done XrmToolBox tools. Microsoft's been coming out with so much stuff to kind of cover that. It's been a while since we've gone back to the old well to say. But so you've got these two tools you haven't touched in almost 3 years. I think 4 years, actually, if I look at the last update date. So they must be perfect. Absolutely perfect is my guess, because why would they need to change? But they're very, very valuable tools for both devs and for BAs. So why don't we go ahead and just focus on one of the tools. So you have the assembly delta compare, or what is it? What the one that works with the assembly only, right? That's the local to cloud. What is that called?
Actually, for the small history, it's my first two plugins on the XrmToolBox, so they are far away from being perfect. I discovered the tools on how to do plugins. I had a console application on my laptop, and I was like, why keeping it for me while it can help few people or more people than you? As you said, I developed two plugins. So one which allows let's say makers now to compare the local assembly, so a simple DLL file, to the plugins which are already in the environment. So it allows you to show that, for example, if you are working with a colleague on a plugin and he deleted the plugin without your knowledge, and you want to deploy your plugins, you will get a nice error saying that I don't remember that error anymore because I use the tool, so I know how to anticipate it. But at least you can see that a plugin is missing in your DLL compared to what is in the environment, so you can avoid that error and push it back because it's a mistake or yeah.
Okay, so this is the Delta plugins local assembly versus CRM tool, and that just goes and says what actual plugin classes do you have in this assembly, and do they match the plugin classes in the local versus the actual environment?
Exactly. It's working for the plugins and the workflow as well, the custom activity workflow as well, yes.
So it's not doing a binary compare to say, is this the same exact DLL? It's just looking at okay, cool.
As I told you, it's my first one, so I didn't get so far.
Well, every time we have a guest on, we always have to give them homework. So now you've got more homework. Now you need to add the feature to be able to do a full bit comparison rather than just the actual plugin classes. It was funny. Amy Holden, who we had on for the Dad Jokes episode, she was asking that, I want to figure out plugins so I don't feel like I'm totally talking from like no, complete and utter, what's the word I'm looking for? Being false, not knowing anything, being, I can't think of the word. What's the word? Ignorant is, that's not the word I was looking for, but we'll go with that. Thanks. We'll go with ignorant. When I'm talking about plugins, she said, I want to be able to know at least something and not just faking it. I don't want to be a faker, an imposter. There we go. I was thinking imposter. And so I spent an hour going through, here's the plugins, here's web resources, here's like all the interfaces and stuff. And the first like 15 minutes was like going through what's a plugin assembly, what's an actual plugin class, and what's a plugin step. Because, we call plugins, but, they're like different things all the time. So, okay, so this is dealing with the actual plugin classes within the assembly itself.
So now she's a real developer.
Now she's a real developer. Yep, she'll start coding this week, and it'll be great. Anything but code Holden is gonna change her name. Okay. So the other tool you've got is I think more interesting and more powerful, and that's the Delta plugins steps between two environments.
Yeah.
So I love naming conventions by developers. Like it's very like, this is what it is. It's not like the XZ50 Delta compare. Like it's like, it's actually named what it is. So that's always, I enjoy that part about it. So, so describe a little bit what this tool is and what you can do with that tool.
So this one, it's in parallel of the other one. The idea was, again, for anyone who has the proper permission of the environment to grab a list of steps from an environment, for example, the developed environment, and compare it to the pre-production or production environment, just to make sure that after deployment, for example, it was matching and nothing was left behind or left. How would you say that? It's still in the production where it should have. So the idea was, to really to compare the two environments and maybe having the ability without exporting the solution again and importing it to the target environment to simply with a simple button to copy it from an environment to the other. So that was the main idea. And here you have several capabilities to do that comparison. Either it's on the entire org, so it's going through all steps of the org, or you can do it from a solution. If you split different plugins and step by different solutions, or directly by assembly. So you pick an assembly you developed and you check directly the different steps related to that assembly. So that was the idea.
It's interesting because obviously there's a lot of different approaches to ALM these days. You know, obviously since when was it that you first wrote that plugin? It's quite a while ago.
6 years ago.
Yeah,
2017.
17, yeah. So
Almost, yeah.
you know, a lot has kind of come on since that time. In terms of ALM and, you know, managed solutions being maybe a little bit more robust, and but I think there's that peace of mind being able to do that kind of compare. You know, having that ability, even if you've done it 1,000 times, that you've deployed stuff and you know that it works, and you've done a diff in your ALM environment, you've unpacked your solution, you've got the automatic build, even if you've got all of that stuff, having that check, you know, that final check to say, yep, it all matches up is a really good feeling.
That definitely helps, I would say. But even with that, plugin steps themselves are one of the parts that really aren't, they can easily be changed. You can't prevent people from changing them, right? So that's, even if you are living in the managed world, completely managed world, people could still go in and dork around with it. Developer could accidentally be in the wrong environment when they're doing something, and I changed this and don't notice it, and then all of a sudden, hey, the stage, the test, the product, whatever environment they were in now is different than what should have been deployed, right?
Yeah.
So
that's what I mean. You know,
yeah,
having that ability to sort of, you know, just have that peace of mind, you know, to know that it's all the same. It's all, you know, and like you say, something that's not been left behind as well. That's probably one of the quite a common, you know, a step being missed out of the solution.
Yes. Forgetting that in this. Yes. I think I did that last week, actually. I'm certain I did that. Dang it, I forgot the step.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in an ideal world, you'd go through sort of a rigorous round of testing and that'd be picked up. But, you know, that's not always, you know, not always.
Testing's for sissies, Scott. Testing's for sissies. Just deploy it, live with the consequences.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a really good use case. To give people. So it's interesting, you know, you were saying about actually then applying the changes to production. So you know, I don't want to get into the managed vs unmanaged discussion.
When I did it, I was working with unmanaged solutions, so that's why I allowed the users to directly copy the different steps.
Yeah,
using managed one, it's not a good idea. Yeah, of course.
But I guess even if it's not production, you're doing that. One of the significant challenges that happens especially with a kind of a multi-developer environment, is how do you manage that kind of diffing between different environments and make sure that things get all applied to your build, and, you know, check it into source code. And obviously you can do sort of source control, you know, merging pull requests, all of that stuff. But so what you're saying is really that you're describing an alternative way of doing that, perhaps maybe a more pragmatic way of doing that.
Again, when I did it, it was I had 2 years experience in the CRM, so it was quite new for me, and I was the only one developer. So I didn't have the trouble with other ones, and I just had a dev int on the production environment. So I realized that sometimes, because of my lack of experience, or I don't know what, I was just missing to put the steps, as Daryl, you said, in the solution, and I was missing something after the deployment. So I did it, but I guess, as you said, Scott, nowadays with the new scenarios, ALM and stuff, I could create a small update to the plugin to take into account more scenarios than the one I had 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's a core feature you haven't talked about yet, Clement.
Yours.
And it happens to be one that I created. No, that's not on purpose for me to pull that out, but it was. I don't know what caused you to create the tool in the first place. I'm assuming that you're coming into a project, or maybe you're already on a project, and you had a whole bunch of these things. You're like, doing this manually is killing me. I'm going to go ahead and and figure out what to do automated, or maybe it was, hey, I want to learn something, I'll pick this thing. But for me, I walked into a environment where we were attempting to do an assessment of where they were at and what they needed to do for the next steps in their desired goal. And they had, I think, 3 or 4 different development teams from multiple languages, not like programming languages, but like actual speaking languages. And they had all these different plugin DLLs and everything else. And it was, you couldn't figure out what was touching everything. And the tool did a great job of showing you everything, but there wasn't a good way to like report on it. And so the feature that's in there that's kind of nice is not only are you comparing between the environments, but you can focus on one environment and Excel and extract that out to Excel, right?
Yeah, I remember that this your PR was the first one I ever got. So I was like, wow, someone is interested in my project.
It saved me hours and hours to be able to go through and because otherwise you're stuck with like mainly like checking and exporting and checking and copying and all stuff. And so being able to export out every single DLL, every single plugin step, and have it grouped and ordered, and be able to go through and then, hey, we need to go through and verify this or check that. It was very, very beneficial. So thank you for accepting that and implementing that, I guess. So it really wasn't that big of a change. You had it all there anyways. It's just spitting out to Excel.
Yeah. I remember your first commit was better naming conventions.
I did that?
Yeah.
That sounds so much like Daryl.
Sorry.
I don't know. It was a nice way to tell me that I need to improve my way to code and get better standards. So it was fine, totally fine.
Now I want to see how bad they were and see if I was just being overly deterministic of trying to push my own agenda, or if you really needed some Daryl LeBar help there, if you needed to raise
the bar
there.
Picky. Picky, pedantic.
I was known, and I didn't even know this, but I was known at a company for I was doing their code reviews, like of being a little too detailed, I guess I would say. So like one guy was like brand new out of college, and he submitted a code review, and I think I added like I think I spent about 20 minutes putting like comments and like, hey, this is, shouldn't we do this? Hey, this you could do this. Hey, this is that. And I was trying to be helpful, but I definitely overloaded him. I think he like saw the comments and you're brand new to it, assuming you know what you're talking about. And so he's like, oh, what? And then he kind of realized maybe he didn't know quite as much as he's talking about, and thought he needed to go take a break or something, go to lunch and mull it over, I guess. I don't know. But
has he changed career now?
We're still good friends. It was just I just didn't realize that I was trying to be being a good teacher as possible, and I think I probably came off being more of a dictator of, hey, you need to do that versus that.
It's a fine line for sure. Very fine line between encouragement and trying to make sure that things,
Yes. Yes. Disappointment.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's interesting that you giving up, talking about reporting and being able to extract the various different plugin steps and comparing and things like that. I think those are all tasks that we, in the Power Platform, I think we kind of have got it good in largely. I think, compared to if you had just a SQL database, a load of stored procedures and a load of tables and stuff like that. And you had to manage the differences between that and deploy different parts to production, and have scripts to drop columns and create columns and maybe change different data types. And you know what I mean? It's like there's so much you have to do. And then also managing versioning of this database, what is the current version of that database? Therefore, what scripts do I need to apply on top of that version? All of those kind of things. I think with the Power Platform, we're largely spoilt because, we got it pretty well, with the whole solution import. The solution import just does so much diffing for us. It kind of looks at what's in the solution, what's actually deployed, what do I need to do, what changes do I need to apply. So Clement, your tool is sort of the kind of the belt and braces on top of that. the making sure it's done what it's done properly. I mean, have you ever seen any situations where, common situations where things don't get deployed properly, other than obviously accidentally leaving steps behind? Have you found any other sort of gotchas when you've been doing plugin deployment?
Let's say that lately, recently, I had a client who are working with managed solution, but they don't really understand how it's working. So basically, they are deploying a managed solution, but manually modifying it directly on production or other environments. So sometimes they are wondering why after deployment of a managed solution, the modification is not there. Let's say recently that's the main scenario I face. And by the way, my tool is not handling that kind of scenario. So I could do a quick update to it. I know add a small tick if there is an unmanaged layer on a step or something like that. But
well, there you go. You've got your homework now. So,
yeah.
In true
I created my own issue. And Thank you.
Plenty of things. Just keep on loading it up on. It's awesome.
Sorry, you were saying, yeah.
Oh, I was just wondering, do you have any scenario where you want to push something and it's not pushed? Actually, I'm not able to find a use case, recent use case by a client I faced recently.
The one thing I think I've ran into before is if they have gone out and like manually registered steps in an environment, and then they've also deployed solutions in the environment with steps, it joins on the ID, like the GUID of the actual step when it gets created. So you can end up having duplicate steps out there and not realize it, which would be a great use case for your tool in this case, to go in and be able to see that sort of thing. But yeah, especially if you're not used to being in a managed environment, and people are just willy-nilly deploying whatever they want to deploy.
And also versioning, having
Good.
Yeah, so I was just saying, versioning of different assemblies, that's often quite a gotcha where people, they increment the version and deploy it, and then it's like, oh, hang on a minute, what's going on here? You got, side-by-side versioning that, you got old steps registered against a different version, and therefore the old version is not available. And what's the another one I kind of come across a lot? Oh yeah, it's like other things like things you have to apply after the after the fact, like service references and and secure config, things that don't go with the solution, yet they have to be deployed to production. I think with environment variables, it's getting easier now, but I still, from a plugin perspective, it's not really there, because you can't get an environment variable from inside the plugin context yet. So we can't replace like the secure config element of a plugin registration, because that would be great. Being able to reach into sort of an Azure service vault, and go and get a secure password that you need for some kind of external service or whatever it might be. That would be awesome. So and then obviously Azure service bus references, they're going to be different in production as well.
How come I was thinking that environment parameters, you could access them from? Can't you query for them using the aggregation
You used
service?
to be able to do, yeah. You used to, initially you could, but not anymore.
And they took them away?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, last time I tried it anyway. Maybe it's back again, but I think they were removed.
I don't think I tried it to begin with. I'm just hearing from other people, but
okay,
cool.
Yeah. Which is still in preview, to be fair. So, we do have a tendency to kind of jump the gun on these things. It's like, well, hey, let's go. It's great. Yes. And then it's like, oh, but hang on a minute. It's not fully baked.
That preview thing can get you we just don't know sometimes. Like I had an issue with a Canvas app, and I was talking to support, and hey, you should use this thing, or why not use this thing? And it's actually Mike Stahl I was talking to. And I was like, well, Mike, it's still in preview, so I mean, can you tell me that I'm good to use this and I'm not going to have any issues with it or not? And if you can, why don't you make it public and not make it preview? Like, what's the holdup? What are we waiting for? What are we scared about? Because so that's sometimes it's perfectly fine. Other times, not so much.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one, isn't it? I mean, you don't really know how far to push that boundary, because support could just turn around and say, computer says no, I'm not going to give you any support on that, However, on the other hand, there are some things which are sort of accepted as being okay to use, even though they still say preview. Clement, are you using any, come on, let's get our dirty laundry out in the open here. Are you using any preview features today that in production?
Depends on the client.
If he likes him, he doesn't. If he doesn't, he does. No.
No. I mean, some clients, it's just a no to use any preview stuff, and some are willing to take the risk. Let's say this way.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's I think that's a very good way of dealing with it, is like, making sure that you do talk to the person who is sort of responsible for the product and say, okay, this is actually what you're getting yourself. If you did use this, it's going to be easier. It's going to be less work for us to develop. And therefore, and also in the future, it'll probably be easier to maintain, because once it does become out of preview, it'll be easier to use a newer feature. But on the other hand, it may stop working overnight. And you have to say that under your breath.
On the other hand, it could break a Microsoft won't have any support for it.
What was that, Daryl?
Nothing. It may break and Microsoft may not give you any support for it. That's all.
Nothing to see here. Jedi mind trick. Yeah.
No, Clement, I don't know if you caught this, but Scott almost sounded like he loved the solutioning system, and he loved like everything it does for him, even like how long it takes to do things that you're like, how does it take that long? Like, I don't understand. I've got one table that I'm importing managed. Why does it take 20 minutes to do one table? Like, I don't understand.
Just to give you some time to take a coffee.
Yes, exactly. Kind of, or coffee and maybe a donut or something like that, But I'm willing to wait 20 minutes, or I'm willing to wait an hour not having to manage database scripts to apply updates, and then find out that the wrong database script has been applied to production, or it did something that it was not expected because there was some table that the last database script didn't quite work properly, and therefore now suddenly it's in a indeterminate state, and you don't really know what's going on. So yeah, I much prefer that than the alternative.
So you're saying it could be a lot worse, and that's really the truth. Like it could be a lot worse. And the complaining about is really the speed. It's been a while since we've had to complain about things just utterly breaking you or not working at all. I guess 2015, I think was. I remember Matt Barber had a conference he spoke at, and he's like, "All right, if you guys want to hear what happened, here's what happened when we had all this things. They broke everything and didn't work, and then they fixed it, and then they broke it the same exact way." And he's like, you bet that now we have a unit test in there that checks for that one thing and makes sure we don't do that again. So, but it was kind of funny to kind of talk through how the sausage was made in that, and that was interesting. So. Clement, are there any other features that we're missing on either of these tools we talked about today?
I think we covered most of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, they're pretty.
I don't have any Easter eggs to tell you right now.
No Easter egg at all. All right. Well, I mean, if you were to have an Easter egg, now would be a great time to talk about it. But you don't, so that's okay. But yeah. But you are within driving distance of Tingy, which is neither Scott or I can say that. So that does, you got to have some of that presence,
Energy.
Yeah, some of that energy.
Have you got any other tools in mind? Have you got any kind of, these were the first 2 tools that you built. Have you got any things you keep on thinking, wish I could find time to automate that?
I probably have a lot of ideas, but no, I need to think about it and make sure it's not existing yet. Is it something, let's say, easy to do? I don't want to spend months on a tool. It's not that I don't want to, but we have a family and stuff to do aside the work. So I don't want to say something I won't be able to do. But
you're amongst friends here. We're not going to hold it. Well, hold you to it.
I may, but
if I have an idea and I do it, I will let you know. So you can invite me one more time.
well, actually, you've got an almost brand new. I mean, it's only 2 months old. This view renamer. We should talk about that. What's this view renamer tool you got out here?
It's coming from the Tanguy Energy.
Okay.
I mean, we were speaking and we were like, okay, when we want to rename stuff like views mainly, it's always taking time. Either you have to do it from the maker portal and do it by one, or you have to use the tool from Tanguy, but you have to export the Excel file and then modify everything and re-import it. So it can take sometimes as well. And we were like, okay, it could be nice to have a tool just to load views, do let's say a batch replace and just save it and publish, and that's it. From that discussion, I checked. It took me a few hours and I pushed it. I don't know if it's perfect, but
I didn't know about that. I will be using that because you're right. It takes so long to do it. And usually, and then you find that you've deployed something and you go through the list of views and you go, you've missed the inactive or the lookup view or something, because especially if you rename an entity.
Yeah, rename an entity. Yeah, exactly. That was the idea. Especially when, for example, a company in France, we say société, and usually it's not the direct translation with the French language. So, again, it's a tool to save time to people. I hope at least.
So is a search and replace then that does? Hey, I want to go through and replace anything with this word with these words or whatever.
The idea is you pick one entity or several entities. It's loading all the views per languages enabled on the environment, and then you can find and replace with Word or regex. Or normally it's unloading both. So normally.
Well, you know what happens if you solve your problem with regex? Now you got 2 problems. You could probably even. And homework for this one is you could probably make it work for form names as well, right? I would assume it'd be pretty simple to do that.
Yeah, we can extend it for almost every component, forms, fields, whatever has a label at least.
I love that we invite you on the show to talk about something that's like you haven't touched in 4 years, and you don't even go, hey, do you want to also talk about my brand new tool that came out? Like, it didn't even cross your mind. Or if it did, you were like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I was waiting for next year, to kick something.
Okay, so this is the MVP renewal kind of idea where you don't want to put it all in 1 year. You want to spread it out. And I see. I kind of ruined that for you.
You got me.
Well, that's all right. We probably couldn't do a whole episode on just the view renamer. So renames views, yep. Search and replace, yep. Regex, yep.
Done.
Awesome. So no, but that's cool. That's cool. I'm glad we caught that. So any other tools that you've created recently that we should be talking about? I mean, this is the time for you to stop being modest, Clement.
It was the last one.
All right. Well, Clement, thanks for joining us. We appreciate that. If people want to get a hold of you and to give you some feedback or ask other questions or maybe give you a new tool for you to work on, how can our listeners get a hold of you?
I'm not the best one for the social media stuff, but they can reach me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I guess you will put the link in the descriptions.
Yes, we do get to that. Yes. And then is your website I Love Tacos or something? What's your website?
Stuff and Tacos.
Stuff and Tacos, yes. That was a very, I figured you maybe more of a French cuisine than tacos, but that's okay. I like tacos. Who doesn't like tacos?
Well, yeah, who doesn't like tacos? Yeah.
Exactly. Even French does that.
Even French people like tacos, yes.
Yep.
So, well, Scott, that's how our listeners can get hold of our guests. How can listeners get hold of us?
Well, Daryl, irrespective if you like tacos or not, you can get hold of us with cast@XrmToolBox.com or on social media @XrmToolcast. And it would be great to hear from you. But Clement, it's been so good to hear about your plugins and your latest snuck in there in the last minute. And I think there's the elephant in the room is the fact that we're all wearing the same hoodie.
Oh yes, we didn't pull that up. Yes, right.
Which
Scott
wasn't
and I got on, and we're like, we're using the same hoodies. Like I've never worn this. I don't think on a single podcast. And we just turn on, and we're both wearing it. We're like, what is this? And Clement said, I can go get mine. So
it was meant
all
to be.
three of us. For those that aren't watching this on YouTube, all three of us are wearing the same MVP hoodies, which is one of the more nicer free hoodies I think I've gotten. Yep. So yes, I like nice free things. Daniel Kai gave us backpacks. I think when he was on Kingsway Soft, and my daughter actually uses that backpack every day for school now. So it's the only one that won't break with all the books and stuff she shoves in it. So she keeps going through them, but that one's holding up well. So special thanks to Daniel Kai for that one.
Yeah.
Anyway. It was great talking to you.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for the English lesson again.
Yes.
Let's see you next year.
Yes, next year we'll keep you on here, keep you honest, make sure you're keeping fresh and pick up all the new slang words that have come in since the last time. Yeah, it'll be great. Really great. All right. Talk to you later, guys.
Yeah,
bye.
Thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
This has been the XRM Toolcast with Daryl Labar and Scott Durrell. Produced by Lynn Zawin. If you have any questions or suggestions, please send them to cast@XrmToolBox.com, tweet @XrmToolcast, or hit us up on our LinkedIn XRM Toolcast page.